Welcome back to video number 2 in week 2 of Local Marketing Masterclass. Now you may have realized that this week is a lot larger than the first week, right? There's so much stuff to go through to really make these lead generation campaigns click. And this process that we're about to start, once you learn this process, setting up lead generation campaigns for any business is going to become easy. You're going to know exactly what to do. All you need to do is follow this simple process, and at the bottom end pops a lead generation campaign that works, that generates leads for low cost, that can produce high profit. Now, if you decide to skip this process that we're about to go through, or you don't actually apply it to your lead generation campaigns or your customers, it's never going to work as well as you need it to. So, go through this first video that we're about to cover now, which is all about targeting, the most important aspect of your lead generation funnel. This is really sort of the 80, if you want to look at the 80-20 of what's going to make this work, this is the 80%. Once you figure out who your target market is, everything is going to click. So let's dive in. So why does 90% of marketing fail? It's a pretty big number, isn't it? Well, it is actually a true number. 90% of marketing that goes out there will fail. Whether that is online, with pay-per-click, whether it's banner advertising, whether it's Google ads, whether it's Facebook ads, whether you're doing emails, or whether you are advertising the local paper, or doing direct mail, or in a magazine, whatever the case, 90% of all marketing that gets done fails. And it's a ridiculously high amount of marketing that fails. And the reason why it fails is because the people who are doing the marketing didn't understand who their target customers are. What we're covering in this video, which is all about target marketing, is the most important core piece that you really need to get right if your marketing is going to work. Everything is built off understanding your target market, because when you understand who they are, the offers that you need to create to them, what you need to be saying on your pages, everything just falls into place because you understand them perfectly. So what happens when your targeting isn't done right? Well, for starters, you're going to get writer's block. You know when you go down to write copy or a headline or an ad and you just can't think of what to write? Well, that's going to happen when you don't understand who your target market is. It's going to be hard to put the words onto the page. And things just aren't going to be obvious. It's not going to be obvious what you need to be saying or what you need to be doing. And it's constantly going to be really hard work to get anything good done. Simply because you don't understand who they are, what they're going through. So of course it's always going to be hard to write something that's going to attract somebody you don't know anything about. And of course, as a result, the marketing doesn't get huge results. You're not going to get a 10-to-1 ROI where you spend $1,000 and make $10,000. That's simply not going to happen when you don't understand your target market. And you're also going to blend in with everybody else. Because what happens when you don't understand your target market? It means, and this is what 90% of people do, and they just do a whole bunch of broad nonsense. And so when you don't understand your target market, you're also just going to do a bunch of broad nonsense that blends in with all the other broad nonsense that's out there, and you're not going to stand out, and you're certainly not going to be seen as an expert, which, as we know, is exactly what we're after. So what happens when your targeting is right? What happens when your targeting is properly in place? Well, writing your ads and your headlines and your landing pages becomes natural. It becomes easy. When you sit down to write some copy, it's just going to flow onto the page because you understand who you're writing to. You understand what's going through their head. You understand what they're all about. Your ads will pop and they will explode. They will jump out of the page and they will grab your readers' eyeballs and draw them to it and make them read it. And as a result of all of this, the amount you're spending on your cost per lead, your CPL, your cost per lead, will drop incredibly. Now, there's a good chance you're sitting there listening to this going, oh, I've heard this before. I've been told about target marketing before. I know all this. And if you think back to that first video, actually the second video, the inner game video that I did in week 1, I spoke about in there how a common reaction for a lot of people is to go, oh, I know that. I know that. You probably shouldn't be smoking. Oh yeah, I know that. You probably shouldn't be eating that much junk food. Oh yeah, I know that. You should probably be doing more exercise. Oh yeah, I know that. That I know response that you can give sometimes. I used to do this too, especially around target marketing. I didn't realize how important it was, and so when anybody spoke about it, and they said, you know, you got to do this, I'd be like, yeah, I know, I've done it. But I wasn't actually doing it properly. So there's a difference between understanding that target marketing exists and actually doing it and having knowledge on actually doing it. So I want to make sure that as we go through this, that you realize how important targeting is, because it's what your whole entire campaign will be built around. There was a time about 1.5 years ago when I was trying to write an ad for a client. And I said to my mentor, I said, I'm really struggling with this. This is really hard to do. I'm struggling. And they said, well, 9 times out of 10, if you're struggling to write copy and you don't know what to say, it simply means that you don't understand your target customer and what they're going through. And I said, no, I understand them. I know exactly what's going on. He said, okay, cool. Tell me about them. And I said, oh, well, he's a business owner who wants to grow his business and get more leads. And he said, okay, cool. So tell me more. And I replied, well, he's probably about 40 years old, has a family, and wants to make some more money in his business. And he immediately said to me, he's like, all right, cool. So you don't know anywhere near enough about your target market. And he was right. As soon as I went out and I actually did some proper, went through the proper process and did the right exercises to figure out more about them, immediately what I needed to write and offer these guys clicked into place. So that's why it's so important to get your targeting right, because if it's not right, your ads are going to suck. You're never going to get a low cost per lead. And when they are right, everything clicks into place and you're going to be making a lot of money and getting a lot of leads through the system. So I can't reiterate this more than I am, but you must understand your target market. So to make this sink in, you must understand your target market. So what we must do is we must think externally. We must think external, tangible, verifiable, and measurable. We must think external, tangible, verifiable, and measurable. So what the hell does that mean? Well, it means that we've got to think in exact terms, exact examples of things that are happening. All right. So let me give you an example of this. Right. Let me tangibilize this sentence. Let's just imagine that you were somebody who helped parents become better parents. Almost like a parent coach, I guess you could say. And, and I was asking you about your target market. And I said, well, who are your target market? What's a problem they've got? And you said, well, their kids are being disrespectful to them. That is what 90% of people, that's where 90% of people stop. That's just a very general term. Their kids are being disrespectful. What does that mean? It's open to interpretation. What does being disrespectful mean? What's an example of that? Right? So then when we look further and we say, well, it could be that their son is backchatting to them. Their child is constantly saying no to their requests.
When they're at the supermarket, if the parents don't buy him a candy bar, he gets really upset and has a big tantrum and a big cry about it and causes a big scene that embarrasses the mother. He might, one of the older child might steal stuff from the younger child and not share with them and cause fights and then hit the younger child when they try and take what's theirs back. And as a result, they're worried that their son, their child will never be obedient, will never listen to them, will never follow their advice, and might end up in drugs or as a criminal. Right? Can you see how specific that is? So let's have a look at the two different types of ads that you would be able to create with that information. So one would be, hey, do you find that your kids are disrespectful? Blah, 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 sign up here. And that's really bland and boring in general. It doesn't really grab your attention. On the other hand, if you had an ad that said, tell me, does any of this sound familiar to you? Your child or children backchat to you constantly saying no to you when you ask them to do something, refusing to do chores or refusing to go to their room, refusing to clean up their toys. Or maybe perhaps when you're at a shopping center and you're buying groceries, if you refuse to buy them a candy bar, they have a huge tantrum. They crack the sads, they start screaming and crying and embarrass you while you're trying to buy groceries. Well, if any of that happens to you, there's a couple of things you need to know, and the first thing is that you're not alone. Now, I've just done that off the top of my head, so it could be done a lot better, but you can see how much, because it's so specific to their problems that they're going through, and their external examples and situations, how much more powerful that is going to make people respond. So saying, is your child disrespectful? That's open to interpretation. What is disrespectful? But saying, does your child constantly say no to you and refuse to do what you ask them to do? When you ask them to do a chore or clean up their toys and they say no and don't listen to you, that's a specific example that they can really relate to and say, oh my God, that's exactly what he does. So we must think externable, tangible, verifiable, and measurable. So, what is your target, right? What is your target market? Well, really, we want to stick to a 5 to 15 year age bracket. Anything larger than that, and you're going to run into problems. So let's just think about you for a second in your business stuff. If you had a 20-year age bracket and you were sort of going after 30 to 50-year-olds, for example, can you see how the problems that a 30-year-old would be going through in life in relation to their business are completely different to the problems that a 50-year-old would be going through? So for a 30-year-old, he's worried really about growing his business and getting more cash flow and buying a nicer house and sending his kids to a private school and being able to go on holidays and wear really nice clothes. And being a really good father and being able to provide. For a 50-year-old, he's probably more worried about how can I sell this business? How can I get out of this business? I'm worried about retirement. I want to set myself up to be able to hand this off to somebody else. He's in a completely different frame of mind. And as a result, if we're using a 20-year age bracket, we're going to be shooting at too many targets. What we want to do is narrow it down as much as possible to ideally a 5 and at maximum a 15-year age bracket. And this brings us to our second point, demographics versus psychographics. So what does all that gibberish mean? Well, demographics are things like age, sex, location, category of business, income and turnover, amount of kids, type of car they drive, type of house they live in, amounts of, sorts of things they spend their money on, whether they travel or not, what magazines they subscribe to, and all that sort of stuff. It's very logical, informative ones and zeros. On the other hand, we also have psychographics. So Psychographics are the psyche, what's going on inside their head, what makes them tick. Understanding what their biggest problems, fears, and frustrations are. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. What is keeping this person awake at 3 o'clock at night? What's worrying him? What's frustrating him? What's going on inside his head? Because you must know your customer better than they know themselves. And when you know them better than they know themselves, you can communicate that to them. And as a result, they will see you as an expert. So looking deeper into this, for you specifically with your specific target market, with your clients, we don't want to go after broke guys. We want to go after businesses that can afford you. Right? So we're not going after the single plumber who's making 50 grand a year, who barely can, drum up enough cash, to buy a website. That's just stupid. And it's ridiculous. It's frustrating the amount of people I speak to who really want to go after and target these type of guys. Maybe if they have a business where there's like 4, 5, or 6 plumbers working for him, that could work. But a sole single trading plumber, that's just bad news. Okay? But I understand the reason why it seems easy to go after these guys, because you can get their mobile number, you can contact them directly, and they're easier to deal with. But when you've got an owner of a financial planning firm with 5 financial planners working for him, giving you his mobile number and asking him to call you, you immediately overcome that whole problem of how you contact with them. So don't be silly and go after these shitty little businesses that aren't making any money. You also want to go after businesses that have high sale amounts. You want them to be able to make money off the leads that you give them. Because if they can't make money off the leads that you're giving them, they're not going to be able to make a profit. It's just not going to work out for them. And as a result, businesses with typically high sale amounts of $1,000 plus, they understand the value of a lead. They understand that leads are worth money. They understand that they make $2,000 for every 2 leads that come in through their door. They get that. They're on that level. They're business people. So this is most likely going to be in some sort of white collar category. But in saying that, I've got concreting clients that I work with who have, 2 or 3 teams of concreters working for them. So you can go into, the blue collar categories, but it works best in white collar businesses. So these guys, they're most likely grown to like the $400,000, $500,000 plus turnover point quite naturally. And they want to grow to a minimum of $700,000, $1 million, $2 million and beyond. And what they're finding is they've sort of grown to this point naturally, but the advertising that they used to do isn't really working anymore. And the last few marketing guys that they've spent money with, be it SEO or AdWords or with a website, have ripped them off. It's something that happens in this industry. A lot of people go around selling services and websites and SEO and they don't know how to do it, or they've got no idea how to do it with no guarantees, and they rip them off and then move on to the next one. So that's another pain point that they're going through. So here's the targeting exercises that we need to go through. It's time to get out a pen and a piece of paper. You want to write these down because these are the exact questions you're going to be going through, not only for yourself, but also for your clients and their customers. So, first of all, think about who your customers are, their demographics and their psychographics. So that should be at least 2 or 3 paragraphs long. Second, what are their current problems? So you want to write down specific examples of what their problems are. For example, not having enough money, right? That's not good enough. You need to go deeper than that. So you need to say, well, they're not turning over more than $500,000 a year, and as a result, they don't have enough money to send both of their kids to private schools, which they really want to do, and they can't upgrade to the new house that they want to upgrade to because it's going to be too expensive. And so if they don't, start making more money, then it's going to be really frustrating. He's not going to be able to provide for the family how he wants. Another problem is that he's spending $2,000 a month on advertising at the moment, and he's barely getting an ROI. He doesn't even know if he's getting an ROI, and he doesn't know what to do about it. Another problem is that the last 5 people he's spoken to about marketing have ripped him off and not given him any results. He spent over $2,000 with marketing or $5,000 with marketing guys without any results, and so he's skeptical of that. Another problem is that, you keep on going. Exercise number 3. What are the 5 to 7 things they should hear? What you'll find is there's a huge difference between the things that they want to hear and the things that they should hear. So what's an example of this? Well, let's talk about in business, things that they should hear is that until you understand marketing and start implementing proper marketing, your business is never going to be successful. But they don't want to hear that. What they want to hear is that, they want to hear exactly what they need to do to start making money, to start generating leads online. They want to hear about how easy it is. They want to hear about how other people have been ripped off too, so that they're not foolish. They're not idiots. There are other people out there like them. So write down 5 to 7 things that they should hear and 5 to 7 things that they want to hear. Exercise number 5. Who are the most important perspectives in their eyes? What do I mean by this? Well, who are the most important people in their lives that they worry about what they think of them? So for these guys, it could be their wife or partner, it could be their kids, and it could be their parents, or it could be their friends, right? Then you need to figure out, okay, cool, well, what are their current perspectives of the target customer? What do they actually think about him, right? And then what does our customer fear them thinking? So generally, like for example, let's just imagine that we're working with somebody who, let's just imagine you had a PT client and they were working with women, helping women lose weight. The most important perspective in that woman's eyes would be her husband. His perspective is probably that I have a very beautiful wife. But she fears, what her fear is that her husband thinks is, oh my God, you're fat, I'm going to leave and sleep with somebody else now. That's what they're afraid of their partner thinking. So think about who the most important perspectives are in their eyes, what their perspectives actually are, and what the target customer is afraid of them thinking. It could be that they think they're fat. It could be that they think they're foolish because they spent money on another marketing thing that didn't work. Think about what they fear happening in their eyes. Number 6. What are their 10 biggest fears and frustrations? Their 10 biggest fears and frustrations. Now you want to get as external as possible with this, and they're most likely going to be irrational. Like they're not going to be logical fears. And then what are their 10 biggest wants and aspirations? Once again, get very specific with this. List exactly what it would be. Not just more money, but how much more money. And not just more, quality of life. What does it actually mean for them? Does it mean a bigger house? Does it mean sending kids to the private school? What does it actually mean? Number 8. What is the worst thing that they could possibly imagine happening? What is the nightmare story? And what is the dream story? What's the best scenario and situation that could happen? And write these out in at least 2 or 3 paragraphs long of exactly what those scenarios are, what they look like, and go into a lot of detail and be as external and tangible with them. Number 9. Write down 10 techniques or solutions that solve these fears and get them their wants. So what are 10 specific things that these customers could do that would move them away from their fears and get them closer to their wants? That's number 9. Number 10. What are 10 specific negative and positive results that they're going to have when they do or don't overcome or achieve those wants or aspirations? So for example, if he doesn't make enough money, if he doesn't make more than $40,000 a year, what's the negative thing that's going to happen? Or if he doesn't get his advertising working, what's the negative thing that's going to happen? And what's the positive thing that's going to happen when he does get it right? At this point, you might feel like you're going over and saying the same things over and over and over again. But the point is you're looking at it from a slightly different question, from a slightly different angle. So we're really dimensionalizing these problems. Number 11, list those techniques in the order of what they need to learn about first. Because just because they need to learn how to make more money out of each customer that they have, doesn't mean that that's the first thing they need to learn. So what's the most important thing they need to learn, and list them in order? And then number 12, what experience could you give them that would have them running back to spend more money with you? So when we're giving away our content here and we're creating an offer, we need to think about what experience you could give them that would have them running back to spend more money with you. So Eben Pagan talks about this a lot. You know, if you don't know who Eben Pagan is, he's a marketing coach who is the guy behind David D'Angelo's Double Your Dating. And when he speaks about this, he talks about with his target market, if he could give his guys that wanted to learn how to meet more women, if he could tell them exactly what to say to women when they first meet, they would say these things and get a good response back from the women and immediately get a good result and come straight back to his website and buy more of his stuff. So what's one thing that you could help these people do that would have them immediately running back to spend more money with you? So one of the things that I do, for example, is in my content, one experience that I want to give them is I want to give them the experience of getting likes on Facebook. Because that's an easy thing to do and it strokes their ego. So if I can show them how to quickly get 100 likes on Facebook, they immediately think, wow, I tried this thing and it worked and I got 100 likes on Facebook. This is really good. And then they're going to want to come back and figure out what else I know about marketing and how I can actually turn those likes into customers. So I hope you've written down all those exercises, and what you need to do now is go away and actually do those exercises and actually implement them. So they're the 12 exercises that you need to be doing for yourself and for your customers when you get them on as clients to understand who your target market is. Don't skip out on this. Do it properly, because if you don't do it properly, here's a warning, you're not going to get results. Don't think you're a know-it-all. Actually do this all properly.
Okay, so we've just covered the process of figuring out who your target market is, their wants, their needs, and really getting inside their head. And as I said, this is going to give you the ability to construct irresistible marketing campaigns now that we understand who they are and what's going on with them. So the next step is coming out with your outcome and your offer that you're going to be offering these target customers. So what I need you to do now is move on to the next video where we cover outcome and offer, and I'll see you then.